we need to talk about E3. Well, it finally happened. E3 2023 has been canceled. And it's not even that much of a surprise because for a while now we haven't been getting any updates about the event, even though it's going to be up in about 2 months, or at least it was. But more importantly, a lot of big companies started pulling out of the event before it even happened, including the big three: Nintendo, Microsoft, Sony, but also Sega, Ubisoft, and Tencent. It was even a question of who was even going to be at the event. This is now the 4th year that there hasn't been a live in-person E3 event. The only thing that's happened since the pandemic is a digital-only event that happened in 2021. And the event hasn't even really been the same since, I would say, either 2017 or 2018, whichever year was the last year that Sony was there. So needless to say, I think it could be a very safe assumption to think that E3 is most likely dead, at least for now, in the way that we currently know it as. So how did this happen? Most likely what happened is people finally caught on to what Nintendo was doing. And Nintendo has been making these small presentations about 30 to 40 minutes long called Nintendo Direct, and they've been making them ever since, I want to say, 2012 or 2013. They've done incredibly well for Nintendo, and there really hasn't been any reason for Nintendo to come to the Los Angeles Convention Center and have a booth with a big presentation there, or to rent out the theaters just so they can make all these announcements. And everyone else in the industry finally caught on, and that's exactly what they've been doing. Now we have Ubisoft Forward and Sony's State of Play, and Microsoft has whatever they have inside Xbox. Is that what it's? No, I don't know. Microsoft has something. They all have their own individual names, and they're all about the same thing, more or less. And it just makes sense to do that, and also to do it whenever you're ready, because everyone will give it a lot of attention, just like as if it was a presentation at E3 time. As a matter of fact, it even makes more sense to do it away from everybody else, so that you're the only game in town and you get even more coverage than you normally would have. It just means that the different companies have more control over the information that gets out there, and it costs them even less money, because all they really need to do is hire a host and then tell them what to say, and they don't have to set up demos or anything like that. They just can show off whatever they want. And a lot of these presentations get away with just showing off bull shots and trailers, as opposed to actual gameplay that journalists can later on go and write about with their own opinions, as opposed to whatever opinion the company has told the host to convey. Unfortunately, this just means that the industry is a lot more splintered and less cooperative than it used to be. The E3 was also a showcase of how together the industry was. That's why all of the big three players in the console market were part of the ESA, or the Entertainment Software Association, which puts up and sets up E3. Even though they're part of the ESA now, they're still not doing E3 though, so that means that that kind of unity is really not what it used to be. And we're really seeing that with the way that the industry is kind of going right now, with all these layoffs that are happening, the NFT models that all these companies are trying to push, despite the fact that no consumer really wants them. The service titles, the live service titles now that are starting to fall apart, whether it be like Call of Duty Mobile or Knockout City or Multiverses, all these service titles that are going away. A lot of games just seem to be getting more and more consumer unfriendly, and part of it is because a lot of these companies are starting to butt heads and fight over how much attention and mind real estate that they can get. And the sense of unity that the industry at least tried to showcase before is not really there anymore. But it's not like we don't have an alternative, right? In its place, we're starting to gain specifically Summer Games Fest, which is by Jeff Keighley. He's the one who sets it up. If you don't know, Jeff Keighley is an industry journalist slash just like well-known host. I remember when I first saw him when he used to be on the Electric Playground on G4. That was back in the mid 2000s, although he was there, I believe, in the early 2000s to late 90s. I'll be very clear, and it's something that I've been wanting to talk about for a while now, specifically when award season comes around, and specifically the Game Awards show goes up. I am not a fan of Jeff Keighley, and the reason is basically the reason why he's being successful right now. To put too fine of a point on it, Jeff Keighley is a brown noser. He will pretty much do anything that the companies tell him to do. He will advertise for them. He won't give honest coverage. He will just say that this is what the industry needs to evolve into because he feels that games need to be just as big as the movie industry, which means that he tries to copy a lot of what the movie industry does. And I don't agree with that perspective. I understand that he likes video games, he loves video games, they're his livelihood, they're something he's very passionate about, and I can respect that, but the views that he has towards helping the industry grow are very different from mine. And it's the reason why he is now being successful with Summer Games Fest and the Game Awards. To focus on the Summer Games Fest, I don't know if you've noticed, but at least in my opinion, all of the Summer Game Fest presentations have sucked. And the reason is because he pretty much takes whatever he can get, and he doesn't get it from all of the different companies. So we often get just essentially a slightly better version of the PC gaming show, which was nothing but a bunch of indie titles that nobody knows about and don't really get enough information about those games as a result. And at the same time, whenever he does get a few of the big exclusives that he wants, they're usually coming from a place of nepotism and something where he was a friend with somebody, so they're doing him a favor and throwing him a bone. What's more is that even though he's the presenter, so it's a lot more like the presentations that you would see at E3, what used to follow E3 wasn't just the ability to be able to play the games if you were a journalist or an insider or a paying customer, considering some of the later E3s. You now just have maybe that little spot where they're calling like Key 3 after his name. You really just get a sense that there's nobody over there actually doing any kind of journalistic coverage because there's none to really be given anymore. It's not the same thing as E3. You could always have all this stuff that the presentations would say and do and everything, but then you would get on the show floor and be able to see for yourself it was actually as good as they were hyping it up to be. And that element of E3 has been completely removed from Summer Games Fest. So it does look like E3 is going to be dead for the time being. I think that's very sad. I enjoyed E3. I also recognize though that E3 had a lot of problems that they need to fix, and it seems like even with the assistance of ReedPop, who were assembling this year's E3, they were unable to really get that together and give the companies what they needed to actually commit and join the event. But with that being said, I want to know what you think about E3 ending this year, and possibly for good, at least for some time. Let me know in the comments what you think. Thank you very much for watching this. Peace and love, gamers and players. Colorwind out.